Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening and to listen to me for the next 20 minutes about sovereign metals. Quite a nice little picture we've got on our front cover there. Does anyone know what that is? Very good. It is an aircraft. That is a Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. It is the stalwart of the air supremacy of the US Marines, the US Navy, and the US Air Force. It's also the mainstay of air defense for NATO. It's also 30% titanium. And that titanium comes from two places. There's only two places in the world that produce aerospace-grade titanium: Japan and Russia. Now, since 2021, we haven't been getting titanium from Russia. So when we talk about critical minerals, strategic minerals, it begins to make sense why titanium is on the forefront of everyone's minds. The usual disclaimers and disclosures. Right, so we have a project called Casia. It sits in the country of Malawi. It's got two critical minerals within the one project. First is Rutile, which is a form of titanium. In fact, I'll get onto it, but it's the cleanest, purest form of titanium mineral you can find. The titanium industry is a $30 billion industry today, expected to go up to about a $50 billion industry in the next 5 years. As mentioned, 70% of global titanium metal production comes from China and Russia. Our second commodity is natural graphite. Graphite as a market is a $7 billion market today, looking to become a $13 billion market by 2030. 77% of natural graphite comes from China. So that's a snapshot of Casia. There's a little drill team just on our project there to give you an indication of the size of Casia. If you were to walk from that drill rig to the horizon and then do that 5 more times, that's the mineralized zone at Casia. It is the largest rutile resource on planet Earth. It's the second largest graphite resource on planet Earth. So that gives us a very good starting point to become the largest global producer of both those commodities, and in fact, the lowest cost producer of both those commodities. Let's put some numbers around it. In 2023, September, we released a pre-feasibility study that told us that the revenue we can generate from Casia is around $645 million a year for 25 years. Told us profitability-wise, we're talking about $415 million a year for 25 years. Bring all those cash flows in today and what's it worth today, and our net present value is $2.5 billion. Anyone in this room can go online and go buy a stock in this, valuing the company at $0.3 billion today. The interesting thing is, after those 25 years, you've still got 70% of the mineralization remaining untouched in the ground. So this isn't a 25-year mine. This is a 50, 60, 70-year project. Right, quickly on rutile, because a lot of people glaze over when I say the word rutile. We've all heard of titanium. Rutile is the cleanest, purest, highest grade, naturally found form of titanium mineral. It's 95% titanium dioxide. If any of you are wondering whether you've ever come across rutile, these are the uses: paints, defense, medical, consumer, aerospace, coatings, pigments, sunscreen, welding, cosmetics. So all of us would have had some exposure to rutile today about 100 times. The issue we have is that we're all demanding more titanium for all those reasons which I just listed. The problem is that rutile supply is decreasing. That biggest decrease you see from 2015 to 2025 is there's only one dominant producer of rutile in the world. It goes offline in about 3 years. That's all demonstrated in the price of rutile, which in 2015 was about $700 a ton, sits today at $1,500 a ton. So there was no rutile in the world until we found Casia. It's the first rutile dominant deposit found on the planet in 70 years. And it contains 18 million tons. That red bar is not the axis. That's the size of Casia versus all the other rutile we have in the world. So going on to our second product, or our byproduct, because every time we mine rutile, we end up with a graphite concentrate. So as good, honest directors, we decided, well, why don't we produce graphite product out of that too? Graphite makes up 50% of your lithium-ion battery, right? You have the positive side and the negative side. Negative side, the anode, is predominantly graphite. Now, people always say to me, well, why is it called a lithium-ion battery? To which my response is, well, when was the last time you found a shepherd in your shepherd's pie? Right. So I would hazard a guess a lot of graphite is being found around the world. And lots of companies are putting lovely Teslas and Ford electric vehicles on the front of their annual report. Not many have taken the graphite that's sat in the ground, put it in a battery, and found out what happens. That's exactly what we did over the last 4 months. We produced some graphite concentrate, we produced the anode material, we stuck it in a battery, and we figured that that battery works just as well, if not better, than the best Chinese stuff. Right, this is where I'm going to have a little bit of a rant. Let's call it the graveyard of AIM mining companies is pretty full these days, and we all know why. There's this idea that you maximize value once you discover something by using shareholders' money. You find out how much of the commodity you've found. You do a little engineering study, you ask for a bit more money, and you do what's known as a pre-feasibility study. You ask for a little bit more money, you come up with a feasibility study and you say, yeah, this is going to work. You then start building it, having gone to the banks. You hope for production. You turn on the lights, you turn on the switch, and you hope for the best. Now, my view and management of Sovereign Metals' view is to turn that whole thing upside down. So how have we lowered the risk? Yes, we discovered Casia. We then went ahead and found out whether the rutile at Casia is a saleable product. There's plenty of titanium in the world. You know, there's huge deposits, but they tend to be a form of titanium which is not commercially viable. So the first thing we did is, are there any nasties and any impurities at Casia that may render the rutile unusable? We got back no impurities and a simple process to produce it. So then we went out and gave our product to the big users, people like Mitsui in Japan, Dow Jones company Chemours in the US, to figure out whether they liked our product. And they decided to sign offtake agreements with us. We then had a bit of a coup, and we got the largest titanium dioxide producer on the planet to become a strategic investor. That just so happens to be Rio Tinto. So in 2023, they became a 15% shareholder for $40 million, and this year they topped themselves up to get to 19.9%. Why 19.9%? That is the maximum that they can hold of an ASX-listed company without making a bid for the entire company to shareholders. So we did the pre-feasibility study, and we brought in a world-class team. What do I mean by world-class? Individuals who've done this time and time again. Our team has built 13 projects in Africa and Australia in the last 15 years. A lot of those projects are now in the hands of majors. I myself have raised capital and worked on M&A transactions close to $20 billion in the last 12 years. So we kind of know what we're doing. Right, so what have we been busy with since? We've been optimizing the PFS, the pre-feasibility study. What does that actually entail? What that entails is the pre-feasibility numbers that I showed you at the beginning. The assumptions behind those are being ripped apart by Sovereign and by Rio Tinto, and we're re-looking at what Casia looks like under the intellectual property, the know-how, the experience, the expertise that a Rio Tinto can provide us. So what's the best way to figure out if a mine's going to work? You mine it. So earlier this year, we started a pilot mining program. Now, that may look like a decent scale operation. That's about 5% of the size of the full-scale operation at Casia. But what we figured out already is that we can dry mine it, we can hydro mine it, we can stockpile it, we can backfill it, we can process it, we can produce rutile and graphite from it. We're getting all this real-time information on the ground. It's a 6-month trial program. We're expecting all the results of it to be out pretty soon. That's a 10-hectare pilot site area, so it's not small. And we've moved over 150,000 cubic meters of material in that time. As I said, we've also processed the material. So we have a spiral plant, we have all the goodies that help us produce rutile, so you'll see an electrostatic separator and a magnetic separator, all there. What we do know is all this stuff is off the shelf. We use simple, conventional processing. There's no new tech, there's no praying to the mining gods that this may work or not. We know it works. So with that, I'm going to leave you with our near-term next steps. You'll hear more from us about what we are doing on the optimization work streams. We have some infill drill results coming out towards the beginning of next year. In the next few weeks, we should have the results of some further graphite test work, as well as offtake discussions that we are having. Our share price hasn't done too badly over the last year or so. We have $20 million of cash from Rio Tinto and our major shareholders, apart from Rio, at 19.9%, and insiders and management at 10%, include Sprott at 6.8%, and then a bunch of UK and US funds, as well as a few Swiss funds that hold below the reportable threshold. And with that, I'll open up to questions.
Superb.